Hello there. I'm loaded with a cold, little kind of summer cold thing. This is a kind of a debrief or a breakdown of a trip I've just had to Leeds for a few days. It's my holiday, like, you know. Sometimes you know when you need a break, and I needed a break. So it was Leeds for 3 days, or three nights anyway. This isn't one of my normal videos. This is just a video of me sitting here talking into the camera. And if that's something you're not that keen on, then just switch off and go and watch something else, you know. But wait a minute, I signed up for history and hiking. I don't like this talking stuff. Years disappointed from Rutherglen. I think I think I chose Leeds for any number of reasons. I like trips down to England. I think I like the way they organise their pubs and their beer down there. I'd also seen, I'm quite keen on castles, and looking at the internet I saw Leeds Castle, and it just looked like a cracking castle, you know. I thought, yeah, that and the canal, I like canals as well. Canal, pub, castle, sorted. Turns out Leeds Castle isn't in Leeds, it's in Kent, or somewhere way down south below London. I don't know why that is. Why is it called Leeds Castle when it's not in Leeds? I booked 3 nights in student accommodation. Anytime I'm in London, I stay in student accommodation. It's kind of sometimes a bit hit and miss, you know, but you can maybe get used to certain places. You know, you're paying £35 a night for a room as opposed to £135 for somewhere else. I had mine in the Queen's Hotel in Leeds, but I thought, okay, let's screw the nut and just save a bit of money here. I think one of the first issues that I found, I mean, I get really well-priced rail travel, and you're always wondering whether you're going to get where you want to go because there's that many strikes and things going on with railways. But, you know, it was one train to Carlisle, then a replacement bus to Appleby, and a train from there down to Leeds. The replacement bus was a bit of an issue, to be honest. It wasn't a good way for me to start my holiday. I mean, on the train down, you know, when you leave, you're sitting on the train, you're in Glasgow Central, it's leaving the station, you're leaving Glasgow. It's very hard not to be very excited with this kind of I'm on holiday idea. I was just thinking, here we go, holiday. But the replacement bus from Carlisle to Appleby, you know, there was just a small group of maybe about 8, 10 or 12 of us waiting, and the bus driver was in the bus having a wee rest himself. Then he sat in the driver's seat for a while, doing things, phoning, sorting himself out. And I was stood right at the door, and I could see him, I could somehow sense that there was going to be an issue. I could sense it the way he was sitting there and not opening the door to let us on. Because it was, you know, the bus wasn't ready to leave yet. This was his bus, and he wasn't letting us on till he was ready. He was in charge. That was the impression I got on looking through the door at him. And that was the correct impression. Because when he eventually opened the door, he instantly said, right, all luggage, goods in the baggage hold, even small rucksacks. I had a small rucksack. I travel light when I'm on holiday, just shorts, undies, pants. That's it, sorry. Just a wee rucksack. I said, it's okay, mate, I'll keep it on my knee. He said, no, you're not listening to me. You put it in hold in the luggage area. I said, no, I'm listening to you. I said, I'll keep it in my knee. It's okay, mate, you know. He said, no, this is my bus. You'll do I say you put your luggage in the hold? I said, no, it's okay, mate, I'll keep it money, you know, let's get stuff in there or what I can maybe use, you know. He said, no. And in the end, I had no option but to put my rucksack in the luggage hold. I mean, you might have something in a small rucksack you want to use during the journey. It's only an hour or something. You've got bottles of water, some to eat, little nibbles, whatever. I sometimes have my camera gear in my rucksack, that small rucksack. And if that had been the case, it would have been a no-no. I thought, I'm not putting my camera gear in your hold, mate. Like, that's a definite no-no. I would probably have to take my camera gear out. Then he would probably said, camera gear, you stick that in a hold too? At which point I would have told him where to stick his bus. But it was, I didn't have camera gear. I thought, okay, I'm not going to get to travel on the bus unless I put my rucksack in a hold. And you know, he was a bit of a character, you know. The world's often a better place, richer for having characters in it. He was a character. And he kind of must have felt, I don't know, I glowered at him for a while because I was kind of seething, you know, here, I've been beaten here, I'm having to do what I'm told. I didn't like it, you know. And I think he told us some sort of incident where, I don't know if a bus had broken suddenly, something, a rucksack or something, gone flying, nearly knocked some lass's head off. You know, you don't know what's going on in people's lives. Maybe there had been a really bad incident where he felt that this was how he would do things from then on, and all material would go into the luggage hold. I think it was excessive, to be honest. I think there's no reason whatsoever why passengers can't have small rucksacks with them on their knee, if need be, so that they can have access to little bits and bobs as the journey progresses. You know, we can't be focusing all the time on the dangers that might arise. It's all about comfort, passenger comfort. Well, obviously I have to bear in mind certain dangers in travelling, but comfort comes into it quite in quite a big way. And I think he was wrong, but I had no choice but to do what he said. He was a very good bus driver, you know, because the narrow country roads going through the sort of Yorkshire Dales, it was a lovely journey. In a few instances, you've got people parking in areas they shouldn't, like the middle of the road. And it was, on a few occasions, it had to make kind of manoeuvres an inch at a time to get around certain obstacles. He was a very good bus driver, but a bit of a character. He was telling us, I think we had a life story from him, and it was fairly entertaining. Every now and then he would be driving the bus and say, everybody all right in the back then? We'd all go, yeah. And off we'd go. But I spent a good part of the journey just kind of in a small rage, which is not quite right. I enjoyed the journey, but we got to Leeds eventually. The bus from Appleby, the train from Appleby to Leeds. And my God, what a journey that is! It's beautiful. You know, is it the Ribble Viaduct, and all these kind of weird English names, which are really quite lovely. It was beautiful. And arrived in Leeds, booked into my accommodation, student accommodation. From the word go, I sensed that things weren't quite as good as they could have been. It can be hit and miss, as I say, student accommodation. But you do expect there to be certain standards. There's a couple of long black hairs in my bed. And I'm thinking, who's been sleeping in my bed? There wasn't a bin in my room. Okay, there was a kitchen you could access, there was a bin there. There was no coat hangers in the wardrobe in my room. The sink in the bathroom in my room was leaking when the cold tap was in a certain position, which I eventually discovered how to stop this leaking. It was constantly dripping. The drip was finding its way out of the tap in other areas and causing a bit of a puddle on the floor. I went to the kitchen to get a mop to kind of mop it up a bit. The mop was broken. You know, how often do you hear of a broken mop? my mop's broken. The handle was knackered. I ended up just removing the broken bit so that I had about 2 foot of a mop handle that was easier to manhandle. The pillows, 2 pillows, were they should have been thrown out years ago. They were lumpy and insubstantial. They were just a load of nonsense. I had to end up buying my own pillow. And outside in the kind of courtyard, outside all the rooms, in an echoey courtyard, there was people talking and laughing. And at times it sounded as if they were playing some sort of ball game. And up until the small hours of the morning, 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, you're thinking, what the flip is going on here? I'm trying to sleep, like, you know. Because you had your window open, it was a heat wave. There was also, every time I came back to the accommodation in the early evening, there was groups of guys hanging about outside the main gate to the accommodation, sitting in seats at the main gate. One night it was just 3 guys, another night it was half a dozen or 8 foreign-looking guys just sitting there. And I don't think they were sitting there just enjoying the heat and soaking up the views and stuff. They had an expectant look on their face. What were they waiting there for? All my instincts were telling me that something was going on. I'll leave it to your own imagination as to what you think might have been going on. I've got a fair idea of what might have been going on, but I might be totally wrong. I think my first impression of Leeds itself is that there was... in fact, my first impression is when the train was pulling into Leeds, I thought, my God, it all looks pretty modern. There was skyscrapers getting thrown up and a lot of building work taking place. But in the town itself, once I got off the train, there just seemed to be an awful lot of rough sleepers and beggars. We've got rough sleepers and beggars in Glasgow. Tents appear in the city centre every now and then. I think there was more of them in Leeds. And on 2 occasions, I came across or passed instances where beggars stroke rough sleepers were shouting at people for whatever reason. You know, you don't want that. It was pretty unpleasant. It all had a kind of post-apocalyptic kind of feel to it, with people just lying slumped at the side of the pavement in a fetal position. You know, you wonder, are these people alive? It really wasn't good. What's happened to the world where this is how people live, you know? But there's certainly plenty to see in Leeds. I kind of did quite a bit of wandering about. I think I spent quite a bit of time in, I think it's Whitelock's ale. Hold on. Yeah, Whitelock's ale house. I'm keeping this hanky with me because I've had a double sneezes. You know, you've got a cold when you're having double sneezes. Seem to be okay at the moment. Yeah, Whitelock's ale house. It's just a beautiful old pub. Probably late Victorian. The whole place, the interior, quite a small interior. It's just typical of a lot of pubs in the Victorian period where they used mirrors to brighten up the place and make it look bigger. And I've never seen so many mirrors that were attached to every available surface. Some ceiling beams had mirrors attached to them. And mirrors on every surface. You think, what is going on here? Everywhere you looked, you saw yourself. And yeah, I enjoyed sitting in there. I think that was probably my base. Although one day I had one of their steak pies. It's not good to have a big meal in a heatwave, it really isn't. But yeah, another great pub was the Adelphi out just past the old bridge. Leeds Bridge on the Briggate. The Adelphi, again a late Victorian pub, and unlike Whitelock's, which is largely open plan, although I suspect Whitelock's has not been open plan. I suspect it's been divvied up, maybe even with curtains at some point, or dividers. But the Adelphi was one of these pubs that was divided into lots of little snugs and rooms. It was a lovely, lovely pub. The interior, though divided into rooms, pretty modernised, if I'm honest. There was bits of old wood and stuff, but also a lot of modern fixtures and fittings. Then I popped just a short distance to what used to be the Tetley Brewery headquarters and storehouse, or storerooms. Again, it's a nice kind of feel to the place. They're doing a lot down there. There's a lot of building work going on and so forth. I think one of the sort of more notable things about the visit was the Yorkshire accent. For a Yorkshire accent is quite strong, it's quite difficult to make out. I could tell the way folk were looking at me that they weren't always understanding what I was saying, and in turn I wasn't understanding what they were saying. There was a lot of kind of vacant looks and nods and things going on. In the indoor market, for example, which was astonishing. If you visit Leeds, you have to visit the indoor market. It is huge, and the kind of oldest part of it's just beautifully decorated with ironwork and stuff. It's lovely. An architectural gem. The rest of it's maybe a bit later, but it's probably the largest, or one of the largest indoor markets in Europe. Fascinating place. But when I was in there, I ordered a bacon. They called it a bacon sandwich. We call it a bacon roll up here in Glasgow. Because it wasn't a sandwich, it was a big kind of roll-shaped bap thing with soft, fluffy bread-like stuff in it. And I ordered one of them. The guy was, because once he'd fried it up, he was getting ready to put it in this bap. He said, "Puta?" I said, "What?" He said, "Puta? You want puta in your roll?" Sorry? Puta? Yeah, puta? I didn't have a clue what he was saying. He had a really strong Yorkshire accent. And I had to ask him quite a few times. It was getting to the embarrassing stage. I thought, I've lost the plot here. I can't understand what anybody was saying. I eventually realised he was saying, "Do you want butter on your roll or sandwich?" You know, if the word butter was meant to be pronounced like puta, it would have been spelled P-O-O-T-A. But it's not. It's spelled butter. B-U-T-T-E-R. I sometimes think the letter R was invented up here in Scotland. They can't say it in Yorkshire, R. Puta. Also on the train, one of the trains, it was the train back to Glasgow, in fact, we were passing through the Yorkshire Dales and all these lovely little places, Dent, Settle and what have you. There was an old couple sitting behind me. I didn't actually look at them, but I got the impression they were perhaps almost in their 80s. And they were kind of bouncing off each other conversation-wise, and just having a lovely time looking out the window and pointing things out to each other. Look at the little rods and the walls. And it was all lovely. And the woman who was sitting nearest the window, at one point she said, "Look, there's a lorry." And the guy with her, he couldn't see it. And he was saying, "Where?" She's saying, "Down there. Look, the lorry." He still couldn't see it, and he said, "Is it moving?" I half expected the whole carriage to turn around and look out the window to see this moving lorry. The Yorkshire Dales, where you can see lorries which sometimes move. I mean, it was a lovely journey, but it was made all the more pleasant by listening to their little snatches of conversation. I wished I'd had a microphone somehow attached to the back of my shirt to pick up what they were saying. I mean, there are many visitor attractions in Leeds, and I think for me one of the most impressive is the armouries, the royal armouries. Again, it's down by either the river or the canal or somewhere between them both. If you're interested in suits of armour and stuff like that, it is just out of this world. It's free. Even at £5, it would have been worth the price. It's absolutely amazing, the suits of armour and stuff, you know. Wow. There's other visitor attractions, like there's an industrial museum near Leeds Canal. Again, that cost, I can't remember what it was worth every penny, in an old mill building. Fascinating, you know. You've got... I walked along the Leeds Canal towards Kirkstall. You've got the Abbey there. I had a look at the Abbey, again for nothing. It should have been £5.50, but there had been a music event on. They were taking it down, the fences were coming down. There was a gate open. I went in a gate, and I could see a gate that would normally have a padlock on it. I could see that the padlock wasn't on. So I thought, I wonder if that's home. It was. So I just walked in and wandered around at my leisure in a lovely old Abbey building. It was beautiful. It was in ruins, but it was very interesting. And when I'd seen everything, I wandered out. But then when I got to what would normally be the entrance, I thought, wait a minute, I'm on one side of the fence and everybody waiting to get in's on the other side of the fence. The gate is closed. I thought, I've sneaked in without paying here. So I just casually, making it look as if I was meant to be there, slowly walked towards the gate, which thankfully opened. I left and closed the gate behind me. But then just across the road is the Kirkstall Abbey House Museum. There was a small admittance fee, can't remember what it was, £6 or something like that. Worth every penny. What a great museum. It would be really good for kids because there was lots of little things that kids would like. But there was also lots of stuff of interest to adults. Yeah, I loved it. Too much to see in one visit. A good excuse to get back. Just for example, there was a pretty large lithograph print of a painting showing all the bad effects of alcohol. It was such a fascinating work of art that showed every single aspect of alcohol abuse. Yeah, just keep your eyes out for that when you're there. Other great attractions in Leeds is the Leeds Museum. From the outside, the Leeds Museum is just stunning. You think, wow, I've got to go in there. And while the inside of the museum is interesting, I think they've kind of missed a chance there in some way, because I remember last time I was in Leeds thinking the same thing. There's a central circular area, the main body of the museum should be their kind of focus and their kind of big attraction or big exhibit, like a dinosaur or a man in a suit of armour on a horse or whatever. But it seems to be an education area. You look at it, it's just a big disappointment. I don't know what they're playing at there, I really don't. I think that space could be so much better than it is now. Then you've got, not that far away, the Leeds Art Gallery. Excuse me, again worth a visit. Some cracking old style paintings of people and scenery, including that iconic image of, I forget what it's called, it's that long painting that shows a horse charge in the late Victorian period. Is it to do with the charge of the Light Brigade? It may well be. Either that or to do with Waterloo, I can't remember. But absolutely cracking painting, you're seeing it in real life. You think, wow, some really good paintings there. Then you go to the cafe and you think, oh my God. The architecture, typically opulent late Victorian interior architecture, it blew me away. I thought I couldn't have coffee in here. I wouldn't have time to drink it. I'd just look and think, wow, stunning. And just a little bit further outside of the city centre, by St James Hospital, you've also got the Thackeray Museum of Medicine. You think, and it was too much to see again in one visit. Although your ticket does you for a year, again, it's another excuse to go back to Leeds. So many interesting things in there, with a Victorian street that was very well done. I love walking through stuff like that, like you're in the past, you know. I think one of the most memorable exhibits was a little metal framework. It was like a metal framework. I was going to say skeleton. It wasn't a skeleton shaped. It was a framework from head to toe. And I think it dated to the 16th century. And it was like, it harked back to a little suit of armour, except it wasn't a full suit of armour. It was a metal framework in the shape of a person. And it was designed to correct certain ailments, certain physical disabilities like a certain child might have, that would be clamped into this little metal framework with restricted movement to correct certain deformities. That's one of the exhibits where you were standing for a while looking at it and thinking, oh goodness. Yeah. So, you know, I would return to Leeds. It's a busy place, you know, a lot of it's got a shopping centre in the middle. But, you know, if you just look, there's a lot of stunning architecture in the place. I would just certainly return. When I was in the art gallery, there was kids kind of running about, running riot, really, you know. Riot's maybe not a good word to use, but the children were just running about the place. I'm sure I heard in the news when I came back to the house here, there was a story about some art gallery somewhere in England where they were thinking about dealing with children visiting art galleries in a different way. That they were encouraging them to be children and do childish things, run and various things. And when I saw that story, I thought, for goodness sake. Sometimes when you visit libraries, the Mitchell Library and other libraries in Glasgow here, sometimes there's a lot of children. They have little kind of creches where the children sit and the mothers bounce the children off their knee and they sing songs. This is in a library where you used to have to be quiet. And now we're perhaps going to have art galleries for children that are running about all over the place and being encouraged to run about all over the place. These public buildings have been turned into nurseries. I personally don't think it's right, you know. That's probably just an old codger's attitude, you know. You know, if we're going to have in fact, I think that story about the art gallery and children being allowed to run about, I think that was just going to be one. It might just have been either one day a week or for 1 hour a day or something. I mean, if they're going to do that, can we maybe have one for an hour a day or a day a week in museums and art galleries for old folks so that we can wander about in perfect peace and quiet without kids running about the place? And I decided to break the journey back to Glasgow by having a wee look at Carlisle. I've been to Carlisle before, thought I'd visit it again. Carlisle's actually a very impressive place. In many ways there was parts of it that were nicer than Leeds. The area by the, I presume it's a cathedral or a big church. They're just stunningly beautiful. In the church or cathedral grounds, there was one of these trees with that black fruit. I forget the name of it. You can actually eat it. They look like big long raspberries or brambles, but they don't taste like them. Very unique flavour, sweet. But they also make an awful mess of your hands with the red dye that comes out. You eat 1 or 2 of those and it will look as if you've suffered a horrific injury of some sort, the amount of red stuff you have in your hands. But that was a lovely area of Carlisle. Wow. Carlisle Castle itself, which I visited, I don't think it was worth the money. I paid £10.40, and that wasn't paying additional fee for the military museum. I've seen enough military stuff in the Royal Armouries in Leeds, so I just saw the castle. Carlisle Castle's just a shell. It's a wall with a big space in the middle. Of the old buildings that remain, they themselves are shells. They stuck a kind of a bed in one of them and a little bit of furniture. Why, I don't know, because the bed that they stuck the furniture in, sorry, the room that they stuck the bed in was the room where you control the portcullis. Would that really have had a bed in it? So I did at £10.40. That was an old guy's price, you know. That wasn't worth the money. I think they've kind of overpriced that. I wasn't impressed at all. But there was certainly a lovely, I didn't go into it, but there was a lovely old tiled frontage to a pub in one of the streets. And I would definitely return to Carlisle. Anyway, that's really as much as I want to say. Just a kind of a debriefing. A change being as good as a rest to a blind donkey. I haven't got a clue what that actually means, but I feel rejuvenated. I'm Eddie Burns. Bye for now.